Exposing what Atlanta is really talking about. Every night, 8 to 10 on News Talk WSB.
I'm Adam Goldfein. Thank you so much for joining me. We're starting the show an hour earlier, just so you kind of know what we're doing here. You say, wait, what's going on? We're going to be here from 7 to 10 tonight, and I want to talk to you about different policy concerns. Not so much the politics, but the policy. And when you look at what's going on when it comes to money, taxes, jobs, entitlements, social issues, and the debt, and you think about everything that the different parties are fighting for, and you think of the state of affairs, the financial affairs of the United States government, one thing pops out at me as being a crisis that is so enormous, so large, and really not truly understood or discussed in a very common sense way. I think partly because of the choice of words that we use to describe things are not the same sort of words that we would use in our families or even our businesses. Yet when we talk about them in monetary terms for the federal government, eyes basically glaze over. From my perspective, the biggest crisis we have facing us from a financial standpoint is debt. It's not so much the taxes, whether or not you take every penny of somebody making more than $250,000 or not. It isn't so much the entitlements per se, whether or not 47% of Americans pay nothing. They don't even contribute, yet they come to the swim and tennis party. They eat. They take food home. They invite their friends, and they contribute absolutely nothing to the deal. It's not a question of all the different perks and credits and stimulus that we provide, or even whether or not you have one social right over another social right. I think the thing that will possibly do us all in is simply debt. We're simply carrying too much. Our phone lines are open at 404-872-0750. I want to talk to you, kind of put this in big picture. I'm going to show you how fast your eyes are going to gloss over, and then I'm going to give you a little caffeine and make it simple for you. First off, they talk in terms of revenue. They talk in terms of expenditures. They talk in terms of deficit and debt. They talk in terms, of GDP. What is the GDP? Define it. Majority of people can't. And when they refer to, debt as a percentage of GDP, as far as I'm concerned, it's a completely misleading ratio. You need to instead look at what is our deficit as a percentage of the tax revenue that the government makes, and what is our outstanding debt as a percentage of the tax revenue the federal government takes in. It's a question of ability to pay. I find it very misleading when the government tries to say, and I'll give you an example, that we have 76% public debt to our GDP. There are two misleading facts there. You'll hear that quoted often. The first is they qualify the type of the debt they're looking at. They're only counting the public debt in that most common scenario. And the second factor is people have no idea what percentage of GDP it is. Now here's how the numbers break down. Federal government takes in about $2.3 trillion through income tax, primarily payroll taxes and corporate taxes. Stack them all up. They spend $3.5 trillion. Currently, they're running a deficit, which means they're overspending $1.2 trillion. They're spending over $1 trillion more than they're taking in. Now, they're taking the money in from us, from our companies, from our families, from taxes that they raise. And they're overspending based on what they're taking in. Now, they've continued to do this, not just in the Obama administration, although, oh boy, has he racked up his own list. But Bush did it as well. And when you stack it all together, you ready for this? Almost $16 trillion, $15.9 trillion outstanding. Now, let me put this now in perspective to you and me, because when you hear those numbers, they're honestly too big. They're too many zeros. It's not possible, I think, for the average person to get their head around it. So let's put it in perspective and make it equal to somebody who is earning $50,000 a year, the average American. Okay, if I'm going to relate and equate every dollar back to that individual making $50,000 a year. You have $50,000 in revenue. That's your salary, your income. And we're going to assume it's all tax-free, by the way. This is the $50,000 you bring in. Imagine you and your spouse, you bring in $50,000, and you say, why do we have so many bills? And you sit down at the kitchen table and you say, let's go through everything. And you break it all out, and you start adding it up. You get a pen, a pad, and you're on page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. You go, oh my God, what is going on here? Why? Because you may bring in $50,000, but between you and your spouse, you're spending $75,619. You're spending 51% more than you make after taxes. 51% more. You're running at a deficit of $25,000, which is a fancy word for basically saying you're short. You're overspending. Now, what happens when you do that? Well, you charge it to a credit card. You take out a loan. You get a home equity line. Now, you ready for this one? Imagine that $50,000 income. And imagine a credit card balance of $337,000. 6.7 years worth of income on credit cards. How are you going to pay for it? 404-872-0750. I'm Adam Goldfein. You're listening to News Talk WSB.